out here with the rod. We must not stay. Damn neighbors. He's not wrong though. Today I'm gonna be getting this carrier bearing cross member mocked up and fabricated up in the frame. This one I am going to weld in because the carrier bearing will bolt in from the bottom. So if I need to take the drive shaft out, I can just drop it down and pull it out of the trans, unbolt it from the rear end. I got this 1.5 inch tubing here that I'm going to cut a hole in the frame here, slide this inside. And I also bought a 90-degree bend from Infamous that I'm gonna weld on top of that deal to kind of mimic the stock one. And then I'm going to reuse this plate too. I'm gonna cut this off here and then I'll weld this plate to this 90 and get it mocked up in the frame, leveled up to my height marks here, get the carrier bearing bolted up in there. So yeah, just tack everything together, get it slid in the frame and go from there. All right, so that was a battle. Getting this thing cut in the bandsaw was a struggle because I couldn't get the blade all the way down, so I had to pick it up and manually feed it into the blade to get the cut all the way through, but no big deal, just a little more time consuming. Man, this is one of those times where I really wish I had a tubing notcher, and it's definitely on the list. I just battled through it and used the flappy disc to notch the tube out. I mean, for a freaking flappy disc, come on, bro. So I will get this held up there. I got a center mark on the bar and a center mark on the bend tube as well. Hold a square across those vertically and get those tacked in place. And then get that plate tacked on there and get it placed over the frame and measure to see where I need to cut the holes in the frame for the bar to slide into. All right, so I got that tacked on there and I actually had to cut it back off and move it over 2 inches to the passenger side. It's only 15.5 to the dowel from the passenger side, and it's 17 from the driver's side. So the first time I tacked that bar on there, I just centered it up on the bar, which I put it in the frame, and obviously it was too far to the driver's side. So I cut it back off, moved it over 2 inches, and it seems to be centered. I'll at least have enough play in the frame once I cut holes in there to slide it and get it lined up with the dowels once I get the mounting plate on there. Once I get it all welded up solid, I'll obviously cut the center out. Yeah, looking good. I'm going to get the plate ground down as well and get it rounded out so it'll fit around this hoop nicely and keep moving along. I usually try to give a shout out or mention a company if I find a good product, and I'm gonna shout out Lennox hole saws because that just cut through a 1/4 inch rod, when weld, and a 1/4 inch wall twice, and didn't even break a tooth. It's impressive, man. I'm glad I finally found a good hole saw. I always hate using those things because you break the teeth off and you get about halfway through and you can't finish the hole, but those seem to be pretty well, so I'll definitely be using those again. But now that I got both the holes cut out on the frame rail, I'll get the cross member slapped up in there. Hopefully I have enough leeway. I'm hoping with the hole saw, it kind of already wallered it out a little bit, so see if I can get this deal slapped up in there. But first, I'm going to have to cut out this center part, because right now if I try to slide that in there, it's gonna hit the drive shaft and not allow me to slide it down into where it needs to be. All right, so now I can try to get it slapped up in the frame. Let's see what happens. Too tight, boss. Maybe I can just grind the end of the tube down a little bit. All right, let's try this again. Got the end of the tubes ground down a little bit. See if she'll slide in here now. All right, I'm gonna have to Dremel these holes out a little bit. When I say Dremel, I mean the carbide bit. I don't know, I just refer to that as a Dremel. All right, what is this, attempt number 3? As LS George would say, how about freaking now? Oh yeah. Aw. So it won't slide in there far enough for me to get this side down in there. I'll have to cut some off the end of this tube. Right here, cut a little bit off. How about freaking now, dude? This is getting repetitive. Oh yeah. There we go. Freaking hammers, man. They're never where you need them. Well, good thing I didn't weld that plate in there solid, because apparently my measurements were a little bit off. As you can see there, it's a good 5/8 of an inch too low. Now that I got that pipe in there, I can cut that centerpiece off. I've only got it tacked on there. Cut that centerpiece off and then raise it up to where it needs to be. I'll probably have to trim some more out of the inside. The bend obviously gets smaller the more you raise that plate up in there. So yeah, hopefully I can get that plate off in the frame. Let's find out. Alright, so now that I have the mounting plate off the tube, it's probably best that I just pull that back out of there and weld that up all solid. Because I know the dimensions of that are going to be fine. I just don't know where the mounting plate needs to be, which I should have done this to begin with. You live and you learn. so I got the cross member all welded solid. Got the caps in the end. Gonna slap it up in the frame and finish mocking up this plate. Holy crap, that was a battle. I finally got it in there, but man, getting that plate to fit around that tube nicely and also get it up at the correct height was pretty challenging. I probably brought it over here and took it back to the vise and ground it down at least 10, 15 times before I got it to fit nicely on there, but it's all welded up. I need some practice on welding tubes. Good on like the top and stuff, but once I get to the bottom, I struggle. Only practice will help that, right? I wasn't able to weld the bottom of the tube on the part that goes into the frame rail, but I think I mentioned before in a previous video that I'm going to be flipping the frame over. So I will get that welded up once the frame is flipped over and it's easy to access the bottom part of that tube and get it welded. But yeah, man, it's in there. I'm pretty happy with it. It took a little longer than I wanted. I feel like I always say that. I should know that by now, that stuff takes time, man. Yeah, the only thing left now is to cut those height references off and slide the drive shaft forward because it's sticking out of the transmission a ways, and then get it bolted up to that plate. All right, so I got this deal bolted up in here. I'm not real happy with it, honestly. These studs are all the way back against the slot there in the mounting plate. So I think I'm gonna have to weld a plate on here and just extend these. Just cut a plate, weld that across, and then extend it back and extend these holes along with it. That way I can slide this front part back more, because if you look up here, the yoke is pretty well past the line that was on it previously. Once I get that plate on there, I think I'm going to add a gusset in the middle too, because that plate will be sticking out here and it's kind of flimsy in the middle, so a gusset in the middle will add some rigidity to that. You live and you learn. I know I'm learning. My first custom carrier bearing cross member, so I mean, other than that, I'm happy with it. You know, the actual design and look of the cross member is what I was going for. But yeah, I'll get a plate cut out and get to extending those holes. So I have finally got this plate finished welded up, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I did add a gusset in the center, as you can see, with a hole in it just to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing, I guess you could say. That's the final product. I slid this back enough to give, there's a little gap in there just to give this a little bit of play in case it needs to slide up in there. Obviously this is gonna all come back out, but I would like to get it placed where it needs to be. So when I go to do the 4-link, everything's in position and gonna set my pinion angle. All that's finalized, and I don't have to speculate what could change once I get it all assembled. But yeah, man, there it is. But next up on the list will be getting a front kit for this deal, front control arm kit. So I may go ahead and disassemble one side. I want to leave one side assembled, that way I have a reference to go back over and look at when I'm getting it all positioned and welded into place. I think I'm gonna go with the Fat Fabs kit. I'm not 100% in favor of the flat plate control arms, but their kit comes with everything, and it's not tabs for the upper arms. It's like a plate that you put on the frame that has the tabs for the control arms welded to that plate, which I am in favor of. To me, the Fat Fabs front kit looks like the better option, so that's what I'm gonna go with. I think it said 2 to 4 weeks on their website for wait time. It's gonna be a little downtime waiting for those to come in, but when you order that kit, you ship back your stock spindles and they ship you ones that have already been opened up for the bigger lower ball joint, I believe. It might be the upper ball joint too, I'm not sure, but you send them back your stock ones and they give you a $100 deposit back on your order. So I need to at least get the spindles off and get them shipped out once I order the kit. But yeah, make sure to give it a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel, and come back for the next one.